Welcome in. This is the early wedge. I'm Rick Gehman, and today we are DFSing the CJ Cup. Byron Nelson joining me to do just that. Sia Nejad is here. Sia, hello.
I feel like I should have brought a hat. You guys are team hat, and I'm sitting here, the odd man out. I'm doing great. I'm gonna say this again. I probably say it like, I don't know, 20 times a year on this particular show because it's the DFS show. I feel like when pricing comes out Monday, early afternoon, late morning, I'm telling you, it feels like a March Madness bracket every single Monday to me. It actually does. I enjoy it so much. And then I get to do this show. Pretty nice parlay for me.
They were early today. Salaries came out quite early on this Monday morning. Mike McClure is here. Mike, have you ever even seen Sia in a hat? I've never seen him wear a hat.
I have never seen Sia wear a hat. In fact, you know, one thing I have, though, I have seen Sia unbutton the top button once.
No, now I know you're lying.
Once. Never the hat, though.
Was it April Fool's?
I think it must have been HQ or like a studio show or something.
No.
That is my guess.
Was he dressing up as a casual guy for Halloween? Just one button undone at the top. Well, gentlemen, we got work to do. We are removing ourselves from the team event, just one of those, and we're going back to regular individual stroke play. We are going to TPC Craig Ranch. This is a conglomeration of two events that have essentially come together. The CJ Cup, which for the last 5 or 6 years has been all over the place. And then, of course, the Byron Nelson, which has always been held in the McKinney or Dallas, Texas area, now combined into one. But what we have, Sia, is a field that is led by a pair of Texans. I'm speaking of Scottie Scheffler and Jordan Spieth. Scheffler is a prohibitive favorite, plus 250, plus 280, depending on where you're looking, with a pretty big gap to everybody else in this field.
Yeah, and I think that makes for, I can't remember what tournament it was. It was about a month ago. I think it makes for such an interesting DFS conversation too, because remember that, and I guess this is probably maybe the third or fourth time we've had this, where we've had somebody like Scottie at the top, or typically it has been Scottie at the top, and it's like an everybody else conversation. And we'll see it with the DFS pricing. I mean, you mentioned Jordan Spieth. Let's see, it's Sung J M at the top there. And like, that's a pretty big drop off from Scottie Scheffler, but then you get to the alleged drop off to the 9K and the 8K range. I think this is such an interesting tournament because you're going to find that the 7K and the 8K and some of the 9K range, I'm not saying they're interchangeable, but I think you could just kind of like meld them and mesh them together, which may cater to, Rick, you mentioned Scottie Scheffler, may cater to a lot of Scottie lineups at 13,300, and then just everybody diving in that low 7K range. I just think it makes for an interesting DFS conversation.
The course that they'll take on, and Josh, I believe, has the scorecard here, TPC Craig Ranch. We've seen this for, I want to say this will be year number 5 of TPC Craig Ranch. This is on paper, it's a long golf course, but it's not really a deterrent to a lot of these players. Mike, you've got large greens. You have 3 of the par 3s being over 200 yards. You have the par 5s that are basically par 4s. These guys are absolutely destroying them. What do you see when you look at a scorecard like this, especially knowing what we've gotten the last handful of years?
I think that the par 71 could be a par 68 here at this. So yeah, it's going to be an absolute birdie fest. You mentioned the par 5s that'll play essentially like par 4s. So it's going to be an absolute birdie fest. It's going to be strokes gained approach. You're going to have to at least be decent putting as well, just because everything's so gettable. So heavy on strokes gained approach. And initial comment, Scottie Scheffler is not expensive enough.
Is there a through line, Sia, between the 4 champions of KH Lee, he won it back-to-back years, Jason Day and Taylor Pendrith? Can I ask you to find any similarities between those guys?
Well, I'll say this. There's definitely a through line between KH Lee and KH Lee. I think we will find the same type of golfer, one in 2021 and 2022. But what's interesting to me is I think Taylor Pendrith is like what people think of as the prototypical guy that should, in terms of his game, should be able to go out there and get himself a win. Great ball striker, pretty long off the tee, can get hot with the putter, all those things. But what's interesting about the guys who won, which again, Pendrith, Jason Day, KH Lee, 2 years prior to that, is when you look at like the top 5 and the top 10, you get such a mix of yeah, long guys off the tee, but you get guys that are fairway finders who happen to be good with the long iron play. So I do think there's a lot of different ways to attack this. I don't think you can be short, and this is my way of answering your questions. I don't think you can be short and be short with your and be bad with your long irons. But we see guys like, I'm looking at like Aaron Rye, for example. Austin Eckroat, I don't think does Austin Eckroat really get it out there. He's more of a ball striker. Let's see other guys that have done well that are on the shorter side. Kazire, for example. Charles Schwartzel's been really good here. So Berger, although he's a little bit longer now, but the point I'm trying to make is there is a through line, but I think there's multiple ways to get it done here.
Yeah, and there's also, you see that on the approach proximities or buckets that that's true, Mike. You've got this kind of barbell situation. You've got the par threes that are long. You've got some of the par fours in which guys are going to be hitting mid to longer irons. And then you have the par fives in which you either have guys that are going to try to get home in two, or if they can't get home in two, the ability to scramble, from 30 yards to get up and down for birdie. So you don't see a lot of shots from 140 yards. You see a lot of shots from inside 100. You see a lot of shots from kind of like outside 160. And what that creates is you've got the bombers, the bomb and gouge guys that can go drive or wedge, or to Sia's point, you've got the accurate guys who can hit their long irons well. That's kind of like the two paths to getting here. I think it does open up a lot of the field, except for the fact that Buzzsaw Scottie Scheffler's here.
Yes, no, it does open up a large portion of the field. Scottie is here. The number came out on Scottie as well. I know this is the DFS show, not the betting. We talked about it on Sunday, and I told the guys I think that it will be closer to 2-1 than 4-1. And sure enough, it was unbelievable. But that's where we're at here. So it does open up the field as much as it possibly can when you've got a guy that's 250-1 or 280-1. If you were to remove Scottie from this thing is wide open.
I couldn't find, and I just quickly glanced as I was getting ready for the show, another full field event in which a player was as short as Scottie Scheffler is. We have seen these numbers, Tour Championship, Hero World Challenge. Obviously, when you get back to the Tiger era, you see it at the Masters and all that stuff. But this is pretty historically short, Mike.
It is historically short. It maps to, a limited field event, I guess. The question is like, I keep going back to like, does he deserve to be that big of a favorite? Like, my computer is not telling me that he does, but he hasn't played horrible. Like, he's essentially top 20 every single week. Like, he's not missing. It's such an interesting question and problem, but for the sake of the DFS show, I think he could be 14K this week in this field.
And just to set the table, Rick, a little bit, because just emphasizing sort of the DFS point, and I know Mike just said, hey, you could make him 14K, but if you drop Scottie in your lineup as your first man in, you've got 7,340 left to spend. And by the way, this isn't a rich 6K range, as you might imagine. 7K range, I like. We'll talk about 8K, 9K, what have you. But again, if you spend 13,300 on Scottie, for your next 5 players, you got an average of 7,340. If you spend the 13,300 on Scottie and you want to drop like a mid 9K guy, by the way, Siwoo Kim is 9,400. He's a really good example of a guy who's not long off the tee, who's had great success here. But let's go with Benayana, I think at 9,700. That leaves you like 6,800 left for your next 4 spots. And if you want to do Scottie and a mid 8K guy like a Jacob Bridgeman, who I like, who we'll get to, that leaves you almost a flat 7K. So it's really interesting. As much as people might want to play Scottie, and we already have a question from James Kendrick about like, hey, maybe we should live in that neutral range, that sort of mid range, and fade Scottie. I think that's a really interesting way to build as well.
Yeah, the other thing, and this implies, those odds imply Scottie Scheffler is going to win this golf tournament, somewhere north of 25 or 30% of the time. So producer Josh has done a lot of homework here. Here are things that are less likely to happen than Scottie Scheffler winning this full field event. So Scottie Scheffler winning the Byron Nelson is more likely than the Heat to beat the Cavs tonight.
Yep.
I don't know. Just a basketball game. How about the Bucks to beat the Pacers in Indiana? I mean, we're talking about one basketball game between 2 teams, or Scottie Scheffler to win a full field event. I don't know. I'm not sure that all adds up to me.
Yeah. I mean, he's similar to the Marlins to beat the Dodgers tonight in baseball with Dustin May on the mound for the Dodgers. Like that. That's the similar price point in a baseball game tonight at Dodger Stadium.
I love it. Well, listen, we are going to break this field down in its entirety. We will talk more about Scottie Scheffler and everybody else. But first, we are going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
We dig it. Do you? The Pro Volleyball Federation on CBS Sports Network.
And we're back. All right, here we go. This is the cheat sheet at my website, rickrungood.com. There are 3 golfers over $10,000. As mentioned, Scottie Scheffler is $13,300. Jordan Spieth is $10,500. And Sung Jae Im is $10,000. Let's just start with the Scottie Scheffler conversation. 2025 winless, but he has done basically everything else. Nothing worse than a T25 in Phoenix. The advanced metrics, especially the tee green play, have been solid. Mike, you've already you've given us the hot take of the episode so far. He could be more expensive. What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I think he could be more expensive. I know it's going to be a birdie fest. We talk about not having won, and I would be okay having that conversation that he hasn't won if you would show me where he missed the cut. If you would show me where he's finished T40, T50. He's finished like inside the top 25, like every single time he's played golf. And that's in fields that are significantly more challenging than this one, right? So I personally think that Scottie is not expensive enough. I've run some lineups. It wants to play him in nearly 100%. I probably am not going to play 100% at Scottie because there's one particular build that I'll talk about that I'm absolutely going to play. But I'm playing Scottie here and nobody else. I'm not playing Jordan Spieth or Sung Jae Im. Like, yeah, I'll take Scottie at 13-3 over 10K Sung Jae all day.
The one thing that I think stands out to me is, Scottie, the issue that Scottie has had, in my opinion, and issue is I'm using that very liberally here. Mm-hmm. The left miss off the tee. He lost strokes off the tee in the final 3 rounds of the Masters. His numbers at Harbor Town were good, but when he did miss, it was that left miss. Finished 4th of the Masters, finished T8 at Harbor Town. And I think if he missed left off the tee at basically every single hole this week, he would be just fine. So like, I actually am not, even the thing that I think Scottie is doing worse than he did in 2024 is probably not that big of an issue this week.
Agree. Again, I think the Scottie conversation really comes down to what the rest of your build looks like. I think I'm going to, for this week, and I don't usually say this, but I'm going to kind of split it down the middle where I imagine he's going to be really popular. Mike, I don't know if you have a guess on if we're talking 40% or something in that range, but I'm probably like, let's say I do 2 of the $100 SEs, which would be like typically my biggest lineups of the week. I might have one with Scottie and one that's a very balanced lineup that, of course, I shouldn't say of course, but it will fade Sung Jae and Jordan Spieth, and it'll probably live in that 8K, 9K, upper 7K range.
This question here from JB Joseph Boza, worrying about Scottie being able to go low. If it does take 30 under par to win this golf tournament, is that within the range of outcomes for Scottie Scheffler?
Well, what's interesting is that the putter hasn't really failed him. So it's not like he's not pouring in putts. I mean, he hasn't been excellent with it, but I mean, if you're going to tell me Scottie hasn't won yet in 2025, I'm going to probably tell you, oh, there must be something wrong with this putter. So I do think because the putter's been okay that he can absolutely get there, but it's a good question because in these birdie fests, on these easy tracks, we see so many guys that just kind of jump up into contention, which is why a lot of times, especially in the non-Scottie fields on easy courses, you want to be targeting the 60 and the 70 and the 80-1 guys a little bit more than you normally would, because they are absolutely in play on an easy course in a birdie fest. So I'm kind of splitting it down the middle. I think Scottie absolutely can succeed, but I do think, obviously, and Rick, you've made this, Mike McClure, you've made this point plenty of times, the less difficult the course, the less Scottie can shine, right? Because that's where Scottie's just going to outclass everybody when it's going to take difficult shots. So there's definitely an argument not to play Scottie in DFS, in my opinion. But yes, he can get to 30 under.
Let's live in a world where Scottie Scheffler does not exist, which leaves us with Jordan Spieth and Sung Jae Im. Mike, I know you're not really interested in either of these two, but I'm twisting your arm here. You know, you've got to make a decision on Spieth or Sung Jae. Which route do you think you would end up going down?
It would be Sung Jae if I had to play one of the two. Just the price point being just a little bit different, and the fact that it is so scoreable and so gettable. Sung Jae's the kind of guy that can just get streaky hot for a round with his irons, go shoot essentially 59, and kind of be there. So I feel better about Sung Jae than Spieth here.
One of Sung Jae's wins, which there's not enough of them, but one of them was in Vegas where he was like 27 under par or something outrageous like that. An absolute birdie fest. See, if I remove Scottie Scheffler from your universe and leave you with just Jordan Spieth or Sung Jae Im, which path do you think you walk down?
Yeah, it would probably be Sung Jae Im. The recent form isn't bad. Either of their recent form. Jordan's been, at least with the finishing positions, he's been like somewhat consistent. Is it Jordan Spieth you have pulled up right now?
Yes. This is Spieth's profile.
I agree with the assessment that Sung Jae is that type of guy that can just dial in for like 3 out of 4 rounds and win you a tournament. I just don't know that Jordan Spieth is there right now. So yeah, it would be Sung Jae for me.
All right, let's continue down here and we'll go to the 9K range. I think that was a pretty big affirmative for the Scottie Scheffler camp. So let's go to the 9K range. We start this off with Sam Burns, who routinely gets this elite level treatment at $9,800. Benny On is 97. Taylor Pendrith, our defending champion, is 96. Siwoo Kim is 94. Then we round it out with Steven Yeager, Ben Griffin, and Mackenzie Hughes. Keith Mitchell was in this range. He withdrew. But I believe his pricing was already out when that happened. So don't make that mistake. He's been removed from my cheat sheet as well. Okay, Mike, you get first crack in this 9K range.
I was going to ask if Sam Burns set the pricing sometimes because he's always right up there.
Or his mother does or something.
Right?
I mean, it is outrageous.
It really is. So all that to say, I'm not playing Sam Burns at 9.8.
Okay.
If you want to, good luck to you. Go ahead. I like Ben Griffin. I know we get to have the conversation coming off of a win. How is that going to go? But for me, Ben Griffin could definitely swap places with Sam Burns in terms of pricing. I liked what I've seen from him really this entire season. So I like Griffin here the most at 9,200, and then Benny On, I think 9.7. Those would be my top two now that Keith Mitchell is no longer in the field.
There are only 5 golfers on tour, not in this field, who have played more in 2025 than Ben Griffin, which is honestly 5 more than I thought it was going to be. Ben Griffin has played 14 times already, and he's picking up about 0.6 strokes per round, which is a very good rate for that volume. Benny On has only played twice in April, T21 at the Masters, T38 at Harbor Town. His history at TPC Craig Ranch specifically, each of the last 2 years, T4 and T14. Okay, Sia, when you start breaking down the 9K range, what pops out to you?
It's probably, I don't usually play Benny On. I certainly have never bet him outright. And the truth is, I don't know how much I'm going to get to him, especially if I'm playing Scottie Scheffler, because again, if you're getting Scottie and Benny On in a lineup, you're left with well under 7,000. You're left with, I believe, 6,850. I do like him. I like the long iron play. Obviously bomber off the tee. Putter can be an issue, but we saw on the screen there, there are instances where Benny On can putt. He has good history here. I don't love this 9K range. I think Yeager is going to be a little popular because he's got some good history here, coming in with good form. It's probably not going to be for me at 9,300. I'm not going to play Siwoo. I think Taylor Pendrith is fine. I think he'll probably get some ownership because of that win last year and the course fit. To be honest with you, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have Scottie lineups with more 8K guys than 9K guys, or I'm going to have non-Scottie lineups with a ton of 8K, 7K.
Yeah, I think this 9K range, Mike, becomes like a roster construction conversation because of the Scottie Scheffler issue, right? And see, I know you said it, but if it's Scottie and Ben On, it leaves you with what, like $6,800?
I think 6,850 exactly.
Okay, right. Which I don't know how many people are comfortable doing that in a field where the players at 6,800 are Adam Svensson, Mac Mac Meisner, Jeremy Paul, et cetera, et cetera. So Mike, is this range, and especially its ownership or projected ownership, whatever it ends up being, driven by how popular Scottie Scheffler is?
It's absolutely going to be driven by what the field does on Scottie. I think it's extremely difficult. Like it's an interesting conversation for sure, because I came in saying I don't think Scottie's expensive enough. And now I'm telling you that it's hard to play Scottie, Scheffler, and anyone in the nines. I think the build that you can get away with, which dips down into the eights, which we're going to talk about next, is the Scheffler Bridgeman start. You can do that and get away with it. And I think it'll probably be relatively popular. But that's as high as I think that you can go and like still really feel good about the quality of your lineup. To me, is a Scheffler Bridgeman start. And I don't have it in front of me, but I'm guessing that leaves you like 71, 72, somewhere in that range.
I've got it right here. Cause you know, what's funny is, and you were really close. What's funny is that was like the second Scottie lineup I built, because I love, you know, we all love Bridgman on this show so much. It leaves you with 7,050, Scottie and Bridgman.
So this question here from Scott, I think puts a bow on this conversation. It seems like both of you are leaning towards the Scottie lineups as opposed to the balanced lineups, Sia.
Well, I'll answer first, because I kind of gave the answer. It's not much of an answer, because I said if I was doing two big lineups, one would have Scottie, one wouldn't. But if I could only do one lineup, it would actually be the balanced one without Scottie.
Okay. Mike?
With one lineup, well, I'm going to answer it this way, because I don't play a ton of lineups in golf outside of majors. Like a normal week, I play 3 lineups because I like to play some 3 max contests. In a lot of weeks, I would play Scottie in all 3. This week, I will definitely not be playing Scottie in all 3. I will have one lineup that starts Griffin, Gerard, Bridgman, period. We'll talk about the other 2 here in 30 seconds, but yeah, that'll be my path. So I wish I know you want a single entry. I know you want that answer. I can't tell you which way I'm for sure going to play in that single entry until I see Scottie's projected ownership, but I have interest in both playing a Scottie lineup and that. I think those are the 2 clear strategies. I don't think there's a path to playing Scottie and a 9K guy together.
Well, Mike gave us the professional transition, and I'm going to take it and run with it. The $8,000 range, Rasmus Højgaard is 8,900. Then a pair of Texans, Will Zalatoris, Tom Kim, 88, 87. Ryan Gerard is 86. Jacob Bridgeman is 85. Jake Knapp, Rio Hisatsune, Nikolai Højgaard, Eric Cole, Harry Hall, and Seamus Power round out this group. All right, Mike, now's the time to shine. We said Ben Griffin, Ryan Gerard, Jacob Bridgeman. The latter 2 are 8,600 and 8,500. Let's talk about them.
Yeah, I love them both. I think Bridgman's definitely going to be popular. Gerard is definitely catching steam, though, and has played extremely well recently. We talked about what you needed to do here. I think the approach play you need to have that dialed in. I'm a little worried at times for Bridgman there, but what he misses there, he makes up in putting. He's actually 4th in this field over the last 24 rounds, strokes gained putting. And then Gerard's just checking every box for me, frankly. Top 10 in terms of total strokes gained, 14th on approach, 13th in putting, and trending in the right direction for me. So I love Gerard. I know C has played him a lot over the last, month of the season in various ways, whether it be, pre-tournament or in-tournament round matchups. Love both of them. I'm definitely going to have a lot of Gerard and Bridgman, and Bridgman's the one I'll be pairing with Scottie as well.
In the last 100 rounds for everybody in this field, Scottie Scheffler, far and away the best player. And then Ryan Gerard is actually second. Now, only 50 of his rounds are on the PGA Tour, so you have to keep that in mind. There's a lot of Korn Ferry Tour rounds in there as well, but pretty big sample size for Gerard, who's been playing great golf. Sia, I'm sure the Bridgman optimism is music to your ears. Is this kind of the way that you assess Bridgman and maybe some of the rest of this peers in his 8K range?
I love Bridgman. He's my favorite in the 8K range. And what I love about him, and the reason I got on him early in the season was for tournaments like this where long iron play was going to come into play. Like, of course, we know the putter can get really hot with Jacob Bridgman, but when you look at the approach play overall, it's a little underwhelming. But when you look at the long iron stuff, that's where Bridgman shines, and that's where he's going to shine here at the Byron Nelson. So I like Bridgman the most at 8,500. I do like Gerard at 8,600. The off the tee stuff is, I guess it's not as big of a concern here, but that is generally his concern. Long irons, he checks that box. Putter checks that box. The only other guy I'll bring up, and I actually, on the betting show, I'll bring these guys up too, Bridgman and Jake Knapp, because I think their numbers are long enough to consider, including their numbers in the without market, which I'm considering as well. I like Knapp a lot. The putter can get hot. We know he can get hot off the tee. The approach play started like it's hit or miss, but at times when it's hit, he can really dominate. So I think at 8,400, again, if you're building balanced lineups and you want to start with Gerard, Bridgman, and Knapp, I think that's a good path as well.
Knapp's picked up strokes on approach in 7 of 9. That does not include anything that he did in route to a solo third at the Zurich Classic with his partner Frankie Sappin last week. No shot link data coming out of the Zurich Classic. The other thing that I think about here, Mike, is this range is so interesting. Will Zalatoris and Tom Kim, who I think we'd agree, or at least at the beginning of the year, like these budding stars are getting the Rasmus Højgaard, Ryan Gerard treatment.
They definitely are. Look, I was optimistic, extremely optimistic about Will Zalatoris, and I think that's understandable when you've seen how good it can be when he's right? So like you want to be early, not late on that. I am comfortable saying I was wrong on being ready to be in on Will Zalatoris. He had the miscut at the Masters. I thought that at RBC, he was really going to be set up nice. He reminded me in the third round why I liked that. He shot a 64, looked fantastic. I don't think that Will Zalatoris right now is going to put 4 rounds together in a row, and you must put 4 rounds together in a row at a birdie fest like this. So I'm not going to play him. Now, where I think it would be appropriate to play Will Zalatoris is if you like to dabble in any of the single round showdown DFS contests. I think that Will Zalatoris in a round 2 or round 3 here could be someone that wins you a showdown slate where it's just a single round.
Okay. Worth keeping an eye on as the week progresses. Well, I'll tell you what, things are starting to get a little bit shaky. And just as I said that, my light went off. So things are definitely getting shaky around here. But we are going to continue this conversation from the 8s down to the 7s and the 6s after a quick word from our partners.
NorCal rivals go head to head. It's the USL on CBS Sports Network.
And we're back. A stunning 41 golfers in the $7,000 range that starts with names such as Alex Smalley and Matt Wallace. The middle of the range, that's Isaiah Salinda, Lee Hodges, Matt McCarty, Taylor Moore. The bottom of the range, maybe you want Zach Johnson. Maybe you want Matty Schmid. I ask you, Sia, what do you want?
There's a lot of names here, and there's definitely like 4 or 5 that are going to be pretty popular, especially when you consider lineup construction and how, just inevitably people are going to have to pull, or they're going to think they have to pull a few guys from that lower 7K range, let's say 7,500 and below. I'm talking about like Salinda. I'm talking about Gary Woodland. I think he'll pick up some popularity. Valimaki at 7,300 seems like a great bargain, a great course fit. Castillo, guys like that. So I do think ownership kind of matters when it comes to some of these guys. As far as guys that may not be quite as popular that I like, Austin Eckroat, he was T2 here in 2023, just classically a good ball striker, kind of an average putter, but good off the tee, long irons, he can play well there. I don't think he's going to get much ownership because he's 7,700 and he's Austin Eckroat, and I think that's kind of a double whammy when it comes to popularity. I think Lee Hodges is interesting, maybe a little popular too, but 7,500, pretty good across the board, not great really, but like we've seen Lee Hodges, he had that injury that he had to shake off, but I think his upside is pretty tremendous in a field like this. And then of course, I do like Woodland. I do like Valimaki. These guys are good long iron players. Valimaki can really get hot with the putter as well. Being shaky off the tee may not really hurt him. So those are the names I have in mind. A couple really popular names and a couple maybe not so popular names.
Yeah, the Lee Hodges thing I think is interesting. He's eased his way back into 2025. I believe he was out. I believe it was a rib injury that kept him out for 6 or 7 weeks, and then played well in Houston. He's historically a very, very good putter. That's where he picks up strokes on the rest of the field. So if he gives himself enough opportunities, you could see that working out pretty well. Mike, when I open up this range of 41 golfers to you, what do you start to pick out here?
Valimaki stands out immediately. It's again some of the smaller sample sizes, but just completely dialed in on approach. Pretty good with the putter. Hodges, as you mentioned, I will definitely play a little bit of Hodges. Now, the guy that I think is interesting, that I'm very curious to see where people play him, is Taylor Moore. He's had the rib injury, missed the cut in the team event last week. If he's healthy, skill set alone, he definitely should be more than 7,500 in this particular field. I'm going to play him a little bit. I know that he's had that rib injury. We are a couple weeks removed from it. The results haven't necessarily been great since, but I will still back some of the skill set overall there. So I'll play him a little bit. And then there was one name. There we go. Davis Riley. Yeah. I kind of like some Davis Riley here. Just the price point. Again, this is more of a necessity when you jam Scottie, and you're certainly looking, if you find a 6K guy that you feel good about, that 7,200 price point versus a 7,500 really makes a difference when you're playing a Scottie Scheffler lineup. So I like Davis Riley here. Actually looks like he's third in total strokes gained in this field over the last 24 rounds.
Yeah, he's been quite good. The other thing that I want to ask you about, Sia, is in regards to what we saw last week. We've got guys like Taylor Moore, who with Wyndham Clark missed the cut. We've got guys like Carl Phillips, who with Michael Thorbjornsen made a really good run at that event. Like, how much weight, if any, are you applying to what you saw last week?
It depends. I mean, if I saw enough from a certain golfer's individual play, then yeah, I'm going to put some weight into that. But like, there were some groups I wasn't really able to follow in a big way. Obviously, we didn't have the strokes gain metrics. No, I mean, listen, we kind of know who some of these teams were last week, where some of these guys were getting carried by their partner to a large degree. Celinda, for example, who's 7,500. He was probably carrying his partner, who was at Velo, that he was playing with last week. I think Velo played pretty well, but Celinda's a guy that I think is coming in with momentum. He's going to have to get hot with the putter. But no, to be honest with you, I don't put a lot of stock into last week.
If you liked the 41 golfers in the 7K range, how about the 87 that reside in the $6,000 range? The top, a bunch of guys that you can get at 6,900, including Johnny Vegas, Kevin Roy, Quade Cummins. The $6,500 mid mark, that's Luke List, Nate Lashley, Nick Hardy, and a bunch of others. And then finally, the cheapos, Kevin Kisner back in a field, Ryan Palmer back in a field, Brandon Matthews. So I believe Mike's turn to start in the 6K range, please.
Max McGreevy. That would be click number one in the 6K range. I believe he's just barely in the 6K. Yeah, 6,900. I could play some Max McGreevy. I think that he's in this field. This might be a crazy statement, maybe not. I think he's pushing top 25 in this field in terms of some upside. Not necessarily price like it. So if I had to play one down here, that would be the first one. Let me check one other thing real quick.
Okay.
Yeah. Sam Ryder's. I was hoping Sam Ryder was going to sneak in at 6,900 as well. He is not. He's 7,200. So Max McGreevy's the only thing I've got for you that I know will be in one of my lineups.
Sia Nejad, find me some diamonds, or at least a diamond in the rough, please.
Well, it's interesting because you asked about last week. McGreevy had a he was good last week, obviously, or decent, but he had a T30 because Mike, you talked about maybe pushing T25 or top 25. He had a T30 here last year, and so did Dylan Wu. I only bring him up because he's a guy who kind of showed up last week, and as T4, and as I look at what he's done over the last 3 or 4 tournaments, I mean, at least from a finishing position standpoint, because a lot of this stuff we can't see, like Corrales, we don't have the data, and the Korn Ferry stuff, we don't have the data, but I mean, I think he's interesting at 6,500. I don't know that he's the best course fit necessarily. I've been playing Quade Cummins lately, 6,900. I wouldn't say he's an amazing course fit. I think Kevin Roy's an interesting course fit too, but I think Quade Cummins is just a really good golfer. And so I think at 6,900, he offers some value. There's not much else. Kevin Tway played last week, and
yeah, come on. Danny Walker is not going to.
Yeah, I was going to. I did not know he was there. This does feel like maybe a good spot for him. For whatever reason, I just didn't get there. But yeah, Danny Walker, you're right.
Is an oversight on mine as well. I'm looking at the names. He is right there, right above Taylor Moore's name. I just missed it. He's there.
I'm trying to see who else went nuts last week, and it's not. These are pretty bad. Okay, so even if we start with Scottie, so I'm trying to think this out in my head here. So even if we start Scottie and Ben on, which is like the combination of guys that gave us the lowest amount of remaining salary, it was like $6,800. So you could conceivably then run out, your Max McGreevy's, your Danny Walkers, and not have to dip below basically Danny Walker if you didn't want to.
Yeah, you put those 4 in and you're still 67.50.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So that's why the Scottie lineups, like if you can do it, that's great, because I don't think people will be comfortable playing Scottie with somebody like Ben on at 9,700. Maybe the low 9K range, like Jaeger might get you to like right around 7K. And so then you could just start like do 1 6K guy and then a couple or 2 or 3 on like 7,200, 7,300. We talked about some of those guys in that low 7K range that inevitably will be popular because people are going to just try to jam those guys in. Castillo, Davis Riley, Valimaki at 7,300. Maybe they can get up to Gary Woodland. I do want to mention Justin Lauer, I think, is interesting at 7,100. Not a long hitter. Neither is Siwoo Kim, right? So, like, we know Aaron Rai, not a long hitter, but really good with the long irons and check some of the other boxes too. But, yeah, that low 7K range is where, an upper 6K maybe is where some people are going to live.
Yeah, that is a squeeze. Scottie and Ben on gives you the squeeze. Scottie,
it's going to be Scottie Bridgeman is what I think.
Yes.
Scottie Bridgeman's going to be what most Scottie lineups look like this week.
7,050 left for 4 guys. With
or I like Scottie and Gerard, and they're right. Gerard and Bridgeman are $100 apart, so something like that. Okay. Anything else that we missed that we cannot end this show without saying?
I have a theory that Thomas Rosenmuller is a really good golfer. That's my theory.
He played. He got some PGA Tour live coverage last week. He played with who did he play with? I can't remember, but they showed him quite a bit on PGA Tour Live last week.
At Corrales, I think it was Corrales. I almost picked him as like a super long shot, no name first round leader. And he was like 1 off the lead with 2 to play. And I was like kicking myself because I didn't put it out there. But he can put some good rounds. He's 6,500. He can put some good rounds together. He just can't put 4 good rounds together. So he's got to do it on the front end.
Welcome to the club, Thomas. I got that same problem. All right. We are going to be back on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern for your early wedge best bets. That's EC, Jason Sobel. See you, of course, right here on the SportsLine YouTube channel. But for now, let me say a big thanks. Producer Josh, he does all the work behind the scenes. That right there is Mike McClure. That's Nejad. I'm Rick Gehman. This has been the Early Wedge. Catch you next time.